President Joe Biden, y'all. Uh-oh. Well, I'm a little underwhelmed, aren't you all? I think I messed up. Y'all, please vote for me, okay?
The 2024 Republican presidential primary field is taking shape.
The battle lines are becoming clearer, and so is the field of candidates.
Is the odds-on favorites, if you look at the polling, still Trump versus Biden?
That seems to be it, but it's just way too early to tell.
I'm more angry now, and I'm more committed now than I ever was.
Big challenge for these candidates is going to be how do they navigate Donald Trump? And how do they navigate Ron DeSantis?
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
Whoa. Okay, welcome to the Ruthless Variety Progrum and all of that. What the hell was that?
That is a hell of an opener.
Well, I think for the first time in her political career, Gwen Moore has spoken for the entire nation. When she said she was underwhelmed by Joe Biden not walking out when he was supposed to.
Oh, my God. So what happened, and this was an event that looks like it was in Milwaukee, which, apologies, people in Milwaukee don't deserve that. We'll make up for it next week.
We'll put on a good event.
Yeah, we'll make up for it next week. But, they're doing this thing. They've got this. Gwen Moore comes out. She's got the kind of an MC role here. She's introducing the President of the United States. It didn't go well.
No. I mean, that's the thing is, whenever you have any event or any instance of where Joe Biden is involved in the planning, that is just like a problem. I mean, that's why his team at the White House wants to keep him in the basement as much as possible because, I mean, this guy, you don't know if he's going to know where to walk, what to say.
Dude, he didn't even show up. I'm watching the clip.
That's gotten to this point.
He literally, she walked, it was silent, she walked around, and then she felt like she needed to say, vote for me.
Yeah, vote for me.
I know you're not going to vote for me because of that asshole.
Honestly, strong clothes. To be like, oh, shit, vote for me.
Seriously.
It's usually the opposite, right? Usually it's Joe Biden up there doing the inappropriate thing as the MC. You remember the time he was like, "Where's Jackie?"
Oh my God!
Yeah,
and Jackie Walorski had tragically passed away in a car accident.
Yeah,
a month earlier.
Or when Joe Biden was like, "Go ahead, stand up" to the guy in the wheelchair.
Oh, dude, that was
walk.
it's my single favorite clip that I've ever in 20 years of politics. Is my stand up, Chuck. Stand up, Chuck, and then he looks over and Chuck's in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
and he's like,
God.
"Oh, God, love you." Everybody else stand up. Oh, it was so bad. But this one, too, I mean, look, I guess you just missed a cue, but it's like a perfect encapsulation of everything we know about Joe Biden and everything else. I mean, my God, what a terrible mess. Well, here we are at the Ruthless Variety Program in a I got to tell you, the month of August, we've known this for a long time, was going to be a busy time for us because, this is where those of you who know and love Ruthless knew there was a crescendo that was happening because we were going to Iowa and the state fair. We were going to Atlanta to go do the gathering event with Eric Erickson.
Can't wait for that, by the way.
We're doing that tomorrow. And then we were culminating in being the opening act, the pre-debate show at the Milwaukee Arena. And, oh, man. I just love every minute. This is it's just energizing.
Yeah, that's the thing is, as everyone knows, the purpose of the Ruthless Variety Program is to give conservatives a voice where, every other media organization is essentially hell-bent on trying to be a firing squad. We're trying to elevate conservatives, and I really think that's kind of gotten out there where if you're a candidate who's running, you're like, well, shit, these guys will give me a fair shake. I want to be on Ruthless, which, we're very blessed with that, but that also means, man, we're putting up those frequent flyer miles. Coast to coast, wherever we can help, we've been putting in work.
Basically, every candidacy knows that except for Tim Scott. They've gotten no Ruthless bump.
Is he still running?
Because somehow, despite entreaties, and we told you this back in May or June when people were complaining that everybody wasn't on the show at all time. It was like, we're going to send these things out and we're going to do things the way it's supposed to be done. And I think we've done that with the exception of Tim Scott.
I completely forgot he's running. At least 10 times when we're in Iowa, we're naming all the candidates because every candidate was there over a 48-hour period when we're in Iowa. We're at the airport and Trump lands. So, like, literally every candidate's there. And I was like, well, I guess everyone showed up. And then, who was it? Was it Duncan? Who's like, well, Tim Scott isn't here yet. I was like, damn, he is still wrong. I completely forgot about that guy.
They were introducing
Tim Scott's
people,
the only guy who didn't show up.
They were introducing people we'd never heard of.
Never
before.
heard of it.
Ryan Brinkley?
Yeah.
Binkley?
A handsome gentleman.
Very handsome.
Who looked
Nice
like
guy.
he must be a terrific human being. Has absolutely no business running for president.
I mean, I'd never heard of him until
but
I
he
met
seems
him.
like a gentleman.
Yeah, seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he showed up.
He was there.
If Ryan Binkley could show up, dude.
Who's the guy that gave us the lecture on the national debt? What's that dude's name?
Perry Johnson.
Yeah, we may have Perry Johnson on the show. If for nothing else, then that was an entertaining vignette. We were at a Kim Reynolds event. And do we have video? I don't know if we have video of any of that.
No,
they
I don't think
do.
so.
They do. They have like 9
do.
cameramen at the.
Well, because they came up to us afterwards and were like, "Hey, we're filming a documentary about this."
They said reality show
or a reality
Yeah,
show about
yeah.
this guy's run for president, and we want to film you interacting with him. And I was like, "I'm not sure you're gonna love that."
Yeah, I unfortunately missed that conversation.
Well, you were hobnobbing as one does.
I was with some Iowa locals.
Was it Iowa locals or was it journos? Because I remember it.
Combination of the two.
So here's how I remember it. We're hanging out talking to conservatives and activists about like, okay, here's how we beat Biden.
And we were receiving. In fairness, we were receiving.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as one does.
As one
we
does.
were part of the rotation. You know, when you want to go.
I see.
And
This
talk
is
to
this.
everyone.
Let me
And
stop.
meanwhile,
This is where I
Ashbrook
need to
wasn't there.
stop
Do you know why? Because his journo buddies were out in the
no.
corner hitting the buffet line. That's where you'll find a
This is
journo.
what-
If there's
this
an
is-
event with a buffet line, if you want to meet a journo, go to the buffet line.
They're
I guarantee
getting
they're
all the
there.
free food they can.
And so Ashbrook's like, my journo buddies, they're over by the buffet line. I'm going to abandon my actual friends. And so he goes over with his journo buddies.
It's just a complete lie. This guy
This
told
is
a
the
lie
truth.
about Michael,
This is
his
always the
face off
truth.
with Michael Duncan,
I always tell the
downing high noons. He's telling a lie right now. I cannot just stand there and hope that people will come to me and receive them. I actually like to go and talk to people when I'm in an area like Iowa because there's a lot
Very
more you
proactive
can learn.
of you, Smash.
A lot more you can learn by talking to people like the lieutenant governor in the state. He is a wonderful.
rolled up.
Well,
was a
he
great
came
guy.
to us,
Yeah, he came
and
on
we
over.
had we
Well,
had a nice conversation. A world class human being, I
Yeah.
might add.
Yeah.
I talked to him
Great
first.
And his wife, lovely.
Also,
Terrific person.
Yeah.
They're from the northern corner of the state.
Well, I'm glad you got that important information.
specifically about that gentleman, like it says so much about an elected official when they tell you they're an elected official like 10 minutes into the conversation.
Totally.
Where they're like, let's talk about golf and beer and everything else. And then, oh, also, by the way, I'm a lieutenant governor.
Well, he and
I was
his
like,
wife did like 5 minutes of their renditions of like what they appreciate about the show.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
Legit
yeah,
menu.
we should do golf and all these other things. And then he's like, yeah, I'm the lieutenant governor of the state. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, Jesus.
Well, damn.
Sorry. Sorry we didn't give you more respect than this.
Adam Gregg is his name,
Great guy.
and I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about him in the years to come.
It's the same thing about the entire Iowa bench. There is not a single person that I have met, and I'm sure they exist, but none who have cavorted with the likes of the Ruthless Variety Program that I wouldn't have like dinner with my family with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Solid
Not a lot of weaklings out there in Iowa.
They're
and,
just
and
good.
extremely like normal people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's a, you know, my experience with the many state parties I've interacted with is like, usually there's a few people who are like, okay, this guy's a little off, you know.
Yeah.
He's a bit nutty. He's a little out there. There's like no instance of that with Iowa. They've got like, it's a regimented crew focused on getting conservatives
There's always a
elected.
handful of dudes that hand you like the literature in the different font size that they've sort of pasted onto a piece of paper.
Like,
They're
so here's why the world's
Yeah,
flat.
it looks like a serial killer.
Yeah,
now.
exactly. It's like, are you confessing to a crime or are you trying to tell me something? Like, that just happens. That just happens.
and they don't get that.
I don't
in
have.
Iowa.
I didn't find. Have yet to find a single person that I've interacted with, and we've gone up and down. I mean,
Yeah.
we've really given it a look.
I mean, what I think, what was it, Duncan? Your tracker said you'd put in what, like 11 or 13 miles.
13 miles.
Okay, so like in 13 miles of walking the state fair, if you can't find like a weirdo, that tells you Iowa's got a good machine in place.
Totally.
Well, it also speaks to the stamina of the Ruthless Variety Program. We didn't just go to the fair and sit in the air conditioning. Like we put in the steps. Like we saw that fair.
We saw the shit out of the fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did everything except for the chairlift which I was saving for you with Foldy.
Yeah.
Smug, and you guys never made it happen.
I love at the end, Duncan was like, it looks fucking lame, but we should have taken the chair.
No, dude.
No,
we could not have taken the chair. Our program would have been canceled.
I wanted
can't sit on a chairlift.
But imagine the piece of a 27-degree beer on the chairlift. That would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
How about just sitting at a picnic table with a pork sandwich?
Okay. Well,
you don't need to sit.
Well, I don't know.
It was a pork burger. I've mentioned this to a lot of people since we got back from Iowa. Those pork burgers are incredible.
You can't.
The hype is real.
You cannot
terrific
overstate.
They were so good.
You know what else was incredible? Were those rattlesnake nachos we had with Doug Burgum.
Yeah, so you're going to get a little taste of that here in the Variety Program. We're going to include our interview that we had with Doug Burgum in this program. I'll warn you, it's a visual medium. Like the camera and what you're watching is important to this story. You can get something out of the audio and get a good banter you get a sense of Burgum over audio. But if you really want to put like a finer point on this, you got to go to the YouTube channel.
100%. You got to see this on the YouTube.
Yeah.
Like Burgum, again, I've been pushing Burgum. This is a perfect example. Yeah. He's like the cowboy wild man. He's the coolest dude ever. He's like, we're like, okay, what do you want to do? What can we talk about? He's like, I got some rattlesnake nachos for you guys when you want to roll up.
Yeah,
rattlesnake nachos?
Yeah. So it's 91 degrees, and he's holding piping hot rattlesnake nachos, and he's cool as a cucumber.
Yeah.
He didn't have a bead of sweat.
No.
Which was crazy because I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we'd had a big night before.
Yeah.
And we'd done 2 or 3 interviews prior.
Yep.
And he told us that he wanted to go introduce us to rattlesnake nachos.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, great. We walked up or whatever. But I failed to recognize the fact that it was 91 degrees.
Yeah.
And it was hotter than Hades. And we're eating hot nachos with rattlesnake on it. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can survive this.
But Burgum is a frontiersman. He's a cowboy's cowboy. John Wayne didn't sweat in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Doug Burgum is not going to sweat at the Iowa State Fair.
You know what was the hardest the hardest shit was Burgum was like, I love eating rattlesnake. It was like, also the salsa has venom in it. And I was like, bro. This guy has rattlesnake nachos and venom, and then rolls up for voters. So another day in Burgum's life.
And by the way, the owner of the outfit that served us was more than happy to come out of the booth and talk to Burgum because he was like, "Hey, there's a rattlesnake guy.
Yeah.
I'm all for."
Oh yeah,
this
he
guy.
knew. He knew.
He knew immediately.
And I'm telling you, folks, hit the YouTube up. I mean, this was one of the best segments I think we got out of Iowa. Had a wonderful time.
Totally.
Outstanding.
It's great stuff. I want to thank Megyn Kelly. We were on her program yesterday, and I'll tell you what, here's the highlight for me. And you guys, you may have different highlights, but the fact that she contorted the discussion about the crazy woman on the airline to a discussion more broadly about trust in America and mental health was brilliant.
But also more specifically about uncovering the lizard people, which I think is a huge issue. I was very excited to discuss that. That's something I'd
be real careful if I were you to talk too much about that.
Well, that's the problem.
People are onto you.
That's the problem. Is the segment that she had covering about how the lizard people, they try to replace folks. I was like, that's so legit. I mean, I 100% believe it now. I'm completely on board.
Why don't you take your glasses off right now and prove to us you don't blink vertically?
Right.
He won't do it.
He won't do it.
Well, no, it's
he doesn't have the courage to do the right thing.
What was that film? It was called Them or something, right? Where the dude puts on the shades and he's like, I can see the lizard people. I mean, that's why.
Oh, that's
100% the reason.
Oh, they're like your specs.
That's why I see the lizard people, man.
Okay. All right. Really?
100%. That's how I was the first to call it. What's his name? It's not Jake Sullivan, your journo buddy. Jake, what's his name at the White House?
What the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking about, dude?
It's at the White House, Jake, the foreign policy guy.
Your buddy? What? Somehow Smash has connections inside the...
There's a Jake, reporter, Jake Sullivan, I think, who's
No, that's not him.
You're talking about the guy who started a media company?
You talking about Jake Sherman?
Sherman. It's not Jake Sherman.
But he's not a White House guy.
Jake Sullivan's the White House guy, and he's the lizard person. And my theory is that the Sullivan. And so, like, I don't want to get sued, so I don't want to screw up which Jake is which.
This is already off the rails.
And also, like, Jake Sherman's a pretty good guy.
That's right. That's why I don't want to. I don't want to confuse him as the lizard person.
One of the most accomplished guys in media today.
Which is why I don't want to confuse him with lizard people.
Okay, I just want to clarify for the lawyers, all this is parody, laughing.
We're all laughing and everybody's in having this lizard people parody. All right, so look, no secret to all of you that we are doing this debate pregame next week. I mean, this is a big deal for us.
Under 1 week.
It's a big deal for us. And, God, it's just there's a lot of things that have gone into it. I want to thank Rana and her team, first of all, for being steadfast. What you don't understand about when you do a national event in comparison to like the events that we do for ourselves and like people come that feel like national events because there's national consumption of what we're doing. But when you're doing an actual national event, like basically everybody wants to fuck you every turn they get.
Essentially, yeah.
And like the reason that this is happening is because of the RNC. It's because of Rana. It's because of a whole host of effort that's been put in by people to say like, no, these are the guys to do it. It's terrific. I also want to thank Fox, which has been terrific. They have absolutely no obligation because they host this first debate. They have no obligation to be nice to us about anything. And they've been terrific. They've been great. And there's like no hiccups whatsoever. They've been awesome. So anyway, all that's to say, we're going to have a crowd. We're going to have some people. We may roast a pig, Michael.
Yeah, we're definitely going to try. I got some bids out there.
We got bids on pig roasting?
Yeah, I'm going to pit some pig dealers against each other and see what we can do. But yeah, ideally, we're going to be smoking a pig right there in the plaza and handing out some pulled pork sandwiches.
Man,
and
it does not get better.
Have that like right next to the stage, as long as it's not a fire hazard.
Well, all on our dime.
Yeah.
We're going to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to provide that because it's important to do. And like the thing is, I think the reason that we were invited to do it in the first place, fellas, and you tell me if you think this is wrong, but I feel like we bring a little bit of like something different to this sort of thing. It's not the staid sort of like, well, let's see what this man says.
Yeah.
Right.
And if he says something that differentiates from the others, perhaps he can gain a percentage point in the polls. Like, it's just not going to happen with us. We're going to call bullshit. We're going to say this guy sucked. This guy was great. And that's why we're there.
And also, it's incredibly important that we're live because we're going to be able to say anything we want.
I'm only concerned about you being live.
So I mean, it's going to be a huge event. We're already anticipating a pretty sizable crowd. I mean, given there's going to be like all the security and everything in the plaza, but even given that, the fact that the RNC and everyone has helped make sure that we can have a crowd of folks out there to have a good time with us, this is going to be an incredible event.
It is going to be an incredible event. And judging by your Twitter feed this week, live, it's a real roll of the dice.
Hey, it's going to be fun. I guarantee that.
I mean,
100%.
Good God. All right. So we like to start Thursdays the way we always do, with a reading of the 5 stars. And to do that, we start with The Voice.
Okay, so this first one is from High Def 51, and it's titled Iowa Hope. Fellas, enjoyed your special show from Iowa. It was absolutely uplifting listening to you and your special guests. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Iowa Governor Reynolds are perfect examples of what government was meant to be. Unfortunately, I live in a state of make-believe and incompetent politicians.
Yeah, well, there's several of them.
Our governor has been missing in action since her election, and our mayor is more interested in pizza ovens.
Oh, boy.
Yep, that's New York for you.
Former Ambassador Haley would make a great VP choice and an excellent 2028 presidential candidate.
Oh, it's interesting, right? I mean, because she would definitely not say that.
I think she's a very tough contender here for 24. He goes on to say, I have hope that Americans are fed up with the current state of affairs in this country and will vote to rid ourselves of the cancer that's destroying this nation. Stay positive and own the kind.
Oh,
That's wonderful.
What a wonderful.
That's the way.
What a wonderful message. I love that. Okay. Duncan?
This is from Midwest Oregonian. The title is Lost You in the Iowa State Fair. Hey, fellas. Love the Ruthless Iowa show. So fun and fantastic guests. Expected nothing less after listening for several months now. Almost literally ran into you at the state fair the next day and was too slow to get up the nerve to get a photo with you guys.
Oh, shoot. We should have done it.
We're fast walkers, though, I'm sure.
You're incredibly fast.
Michael, you're good. Yeah.
It doesn't feel right to go slow. It feels like I'm in slow motion.
I would have liked to have met this Midwest Oregonian. Though.
Yes, no, that would have been fantastic. This review is for your fantastic show, but also for my friend Sherilyn, who told me to break into a run in 85-degree humid weather. Might have worked, but somehow I felt it might have resulted in charges. Keep it up, and hopefully see you in Milwaukee.
Oh, yeah.
Outstanding.
Nice.
Heavy mouth breathing in public is one of the things where charges could be applied.
Well, you just got to be careful when you're at the Iowa Fair. You got a lot of people. You got crowds. You got to serpentine through the crowds. Yeah, you're better off not breaking into a sweat if you can help.
But also the mouth breathing.
Yeah, that was a difficult thing to accomplish.
Also, guys suggesting that you go 2x2 in the suspended cars over the thing. What did we call those things?
The chairlift?
The chairlift.
We're going back to the chairlift again?
He's on the
I'm
chairlift.
talking charges.
Oh.
I'm
you
saying,
should go.
I'm saying the
on.
recommendation. Somebody suggested that we go 2x2 in this chairlift, and we just get it on video, and we have a beer together. Are you kidding me? In the chairlift? It's not fucking lovers.
Duncan just wanted
I
to
think
do the
they're
chairlift.
Split.
I don't think it was a 2x2 suggestion. I think it was
split
just
delegation.
like we grab a beer and just like
I think there's
hit the ski lift.
100,000 people. It's 91 degrees. Getting a chance to get a breeze in a chairlift with a cold beer sounds fantastic.
Especially
I think
when
Ashbrook is out of order.
Especially when we were hoofing it back to the car after like 13 miles.
Yeah.
A beer and a ski lift ride.
Hell yeah.
I feel like that's an exoneration from charges.
Crazy.
To be frank.
Charge. I
We're in the middle of the 5 stars.
I fundamentally don't.
And
I
I think it would be solo because at that point I was like
It's
so
nothing-
covered in sweat and being disgusting. Number one, no one would want to sit next to me, and I wouldn't want anyone next to me.
Well, but if nothing else, it's nothing like a Ferris wheel. Let's just say
Delightful. Good times.
All right, Smug, what do we got? Last one.
So this is from Heath Bar. It says, hopefully see you in Milwaukee. Hey, fellas, I am a proud follower of the program and have been listening for over a year now. When I learned that you guys were going to be in Milwaukee, I was overjoyed. I would love to come see you guys, but because my first day of high school is the next day, my parents probably wouldn't let me go without your permission. You have my permission. Skip school. 100%. I mean, you'll learn a lot more.
Right.
The school is probably going to try to indoctrinate you. Come have a good time.
Write it on a note and submit it to the principal.
I'll send a note.
I mean, you should get extra credit.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just get credit. You should
100%.
get extra credit.
I'll
happily
say
sign a
they
note.
were engaged in community service and helped, this great country. It says, I love politics, and any shout out would hopefully be enough for my parents to let me go. This is 100% a shout out.
Oh, here we go.
Let
Shout
'em go.
out.
Let him go.
Heath Johnson in Wisconsin. You have full and complete permission to come to the Ruthless Variety Program opener and pre-date celebration.
100%.
Great idea.
I think this would be a great learning experience for me and help me in my future campaigns for public office. Many thanks, Heath Johnson, better for Wisconsin.
Man.
That's a good little tagline.
It is a-
Oh, better. Look at this guy. He's
Look
thought
at that.
about
He's
it.
ready.
Heath is a natural.
He's thought about it. All right. Well, that's good. Okay. All right. So we always follow this every week with a Who Won the Week segment. And, this is oscillated a lot. I'm not sure that anybody's had the same pick twice because things change a lot. It's dynamic, as we've said. Ashbrook, who's your winner?
This week I have a clear winner, and it's the guy who has taken command of second place in New Hampshire, according to an Emerson poll that emerged just a couple of days ago. His name is Christie.
Whoa.
I didn't see that. His second was...
New Hampshire. He has been on Fox sort of over and over and over. This guy is not afraid of media. He's not afraid to mince words. He's very clever. He's very funny. And he is bringing the heat. I cannot wait until he shows up next week in Milwaukee, because whether Trump is there or not, he is on the stand, and Christie is going to prosecute the case.
Yeah, you know what I like about that pick is that I bet 2/3 of our audience is like, fuck Chris Christie. And Chris Christie is like, I don't care.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me.
That's what I like about him.
He's like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to will myself, not through the advertising, not through anything else. I have a message and I have a plan, and this is what I'm going to do. And according to you, like, he's now second in New Hampshire.
Second in New Hampshire, and to your point, what it kind of reminds me of is in 2015 when Donald Trump was on the scene saying and doing things that everybody in the establishment was like, oh, you can't win saying that. Oh, nobody actually really likes him. But he was doing his own thing.
Yeah. And
that's what Chris Christie is doing, and it's actually entertaining.
Plus, he's got a secret weapon. Mary Pat.
Oh, Mary, yeah, right.
Mary Pat.
Right.
I mean, to know her is to love her.
She's excellent.
Special friend of the program.
She's special wonderful friend of the program.
Wonderful, wonderful woman.
Yep, totally. All right, Duncan, what do you got?
Oh, this is tough. Ashbrook kind of took mine, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah? Well, why don't you elaborate then?
No, I mean, I think he nailed all the highlights. I mean, I think my other pick would probably be Mike Pence.
Yeah?
Honestly.
Yeah?
And this is just my personal anecdote based on seeing him in Iowa. I think, to elaborate on what we said on the Tuesday show, it's like what's actually on the ground with Mike Pence is totally different than the narrative that the media is pushing on him. And he's just much more relaxed and loose now.
Yeah.
In I've noticed. He's speaking very freely about what he wants to do.
Well, his give a fuck factor has diminished. And
Yeah.
he would hate that term, by the way.
Right, he would absolutely hate it.
He would hate that term.
He would have a better way of saying it, but it essentially would be the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think going into the debate, I don't think many people have high expectations for what Mike Pence has to accomplish on that debate stage.
Yep.
It seems like it's all been overshadowed by will Trump show up, or are people going to attack Ron DeSantis or what have you. But I think Mike Pence knows exactly who Mike Pence is and what Mike Pence wants to say.
It feels like a very comfortable.
Right.
I mean, our experience was there wasn't a moment of forced discussion. It was welcomed. It was the kind of conversation that you would have with a friend.
Yeah.
And a friend that and who knows you. They're not hiding anything. They're not saying anything that they disagree with, which, by the way, is becoming an issue.
Yeah.
And there's an authenticity there.
Well, and then also, I just think the person who logs the most hours at the pork tent wins the Iowa State Fair.
Oh, yeah.
I do appreciate he cared so much about making sure that he did a great job. He's like, I'm not going to abandon my post grilling pork.
Yeah. All right, Smug, what do you got?
So I actually just changed my opinion when we started the show, but my winner is Tim Scott. I forgot he'd ran, so huge congratulations. We didn't see him at the fair. The fact that I remembered he's running.
That's not fair.
That's big for him.
That's not fair, Smug.
Totally
Use a pun. I think he was there on Tuesday.
So okay.
He
showed up on.
Skipped the
It's that
opening
big
week
Tuesday
of the
morning.
Iowa. Did the Tuesday.
Yeah.
The big Tuesday crowd.
He bracketed all the other candidates with a compelling case on Tuesday.
I mean, audience, who has been to a fair on a Tuesday? Anyone? I mean, I don't remember a single time in my life. But
I'm sure there are people.
I forgot he ran. I don't even know what his message is at this point. When did he announced 3 months ago?
Well, Jesus, he's got $22 million of advertising running.
I mean, shoot, Hillary didn't show up to Wisconsin. Maybe just show up, dude. Just show up, dude.
There.
So you've won the week. I forgot you were running.
Wow!
Congratulations!
What a backhanded
I just
winner.
remembered.
That is our most wild
win.
That is our most wild winner of the week.
Of all time.
No. Since Ashbrook did the Vivek 9/11 one.
All right, so this is the first week, in my view, that I've been unconflicted.
Okay.
And I have an absolute, complete, and total view that Ron DeSantis has won this week.
Okay.
Here's the thing. He's gone through the last 5 weeks. Questions about his campaign financing. Questions about internal turmoil. Laying off a third of his staff. Firing the campaign manager, or at least reassigning the campaign manager, bringing somebody else in. what we saw last Thursday carried through the weekend and into this week, which is the dude's got a message and he's drawing contrast. And he's like back to the Ron DeSantis that we saw in November of 2022. And I've been waiting for months to see it. And we all, look, we know and love Ron DeSantis, but it's been disappointing, right? I mean, candidly, it's been disappointing. It feels like it's back. And I don't know if that holds or if like the turmoil spills over and next week we have a bunch of internal shooting and everything else. But this very week, it feels like things are sort of recoalescing there. Now, and I also have a definitive loser of the week, which is Trump. And there's something different about the Georgia indictment to me than all the previous stuff. And it doesn't disabuse the notion and my concern of two systems of justice. Like, do I think for 1 second that Donald Trump would have been indicted in the state of Georgia if he wasn't running for president? No, I don't. I don't think there's any chance that they bring charges against this guy if he's not running for president. I think it's inherently political. I also think that's probably the same with the federal. I know it's the case with Gregg. However, he's stuck in the one spot that Donald Trump can't be in order to win. And he may win a primary election. Look, he's got a massive lead. But the one place that you can't be if you're Donald Trump is talking almost exclusively about 2020. You can't be. We've talked about this a lot on the program. And he's now stuck in a point where he's fighting for his freedom in order to just talk about 2020. He doesn't have a choice. Like, he has to.
Yeah, he announced a big press conference for next week on 2020, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's a self-flagellation thing that is just, it's not going, that can't work. Now, I think that both Susie Wiles and Chris Sasavita are amongst the most competent campaign managers and GCs in the business. And I'm certain that they know this and they're going to try to figure out a way out of this deal where he has to like bifurcate his time and deal with the legal stuff on one end and his political future on the other. But it's gotten much more complicated because it's just piling up to the point where now you've got to imagine if you were the victim of what's come upon him, his mind is going to be there no matter what. And that's tough for a candidate. We've all, look, we've been in this business. And you know when a candidate is getting like served up a shit sandwich all day, every day, very difficult to get them to focus on something that gets them further down the road when they just want to like settle what's already out there. If Donald Trump and that team can do that, that's a winning squad. I just am very concerned that this is the first thing that's happened where it makes it very, very difficult for them to actually execute that.
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal because if you actually go out and talk to voters like we got to in Iowa, their concerns are 100% current and forward-looking.
Totally.
The economy is terrible. They're worried about, am I going to be able to make sure that my kids have a better life than I did? You know, inflation continues to be a problem. Everything, it seems like, in your daily life, whether it's crime, the price of groceries, Americans paying $800 more a month than they were 2 years ago for the same stuff. None of these issues are backwards looking. It's all current and forward. So to be put in that quagmire, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, so along those lines, Axios did a little recap of the legal issues. And let me just read a couple of passages. The extraordinary collision course between former President Trump's 2024 presidential campaign and his legal morass will be on stark display over the next 2 weeks. His 2-week schedule features nearly a half dozen court hearings and 2024 campaign-related events, previewing what's to come over the next 15 months as he navigates his re-election bid amid legal fights. Trump won't have to attend every court hearing, but his attempt to run a national campaign while fighting 91 criminal counts in 4 jurisdictions will be a high-stress logistical challenge for the 77-year-old president and his team. The legal fights have already are burning through Trump's campaign war chest, which is something we've discussed here on the program. It's this is a quote from Ken Spain.
Oh, Ken Spain.
Yeah, it's a legal defense wrapped in a campaign, and Trump clearly intends to conflate the two for the foreseeable future. I don't think that's an unfair quote, because they're both. And the thing that I said on Fox this morning is, and I think we talked about this a little bit on Tuesday, is that as long as Republican voters are animated by this idea, and which is very real, this is not a fake thing, that this administration, you can stretch back to the Obama administration, which I think probably started this, is operating a Department of Justice that selectively applies justice. There is no outlet except for a protest. Like they appointed a special prosecutor that looks an awful lot to me like they're obfuscating a obligation to give House oversight full carte blanche to the information that they want.
Yeah, and specifically the information that they want, we're talking about the bank records showing money transfers between Hunter Biden and his father that the liberal media says do not exist.
That they specifically put the special counsel in place to prevent that information.
And if you thought for a second that that's not the case, by the way, you just like pause for a second. And I understand there's people who are like, I think they're probably trying to do their job. They're not. If you thought for 1 second that this Department of Justice was conducting that investigation above board, consider the fact that we wouldn't have known any of this without Jamie Comer, Chuck Grassley, Jim Jordan, and the like.
Excellent point.
Not a single bit of it. And they tried to close the books on all of it with a plea bargain in front of a Delaware judge who just laughed them off.
So I think that what you just said is as important of an argument as anyone can make for why elections matter. Jamie Comer would not have the subpoena power to uncover the documents that the FBI would not make public to anybody, or wouldn't figure out if they existed, or wouldn't get to the bottom of. Jamie Comer, who is a Republican, member of the House of Representatives, who is in the majority. He's in the majority, and he has that power because Republicans won the election in 2022. There is no way to clean up the Department of Justice. There is no way to clean up the deep state. There's no way to clean up the rest of this government unless we win the 2024 election for President of the United States.
And look, that's just the thing. You could be black-pilled, and I have my, listen, I've got my days. I think we had one last week where I was just like, fuck it, nothing matters. But the reality is what you just said. In our system, in the American democracy, the only thing that matters right now is that you have people with integrity who have the ability to subpoena records, to discuss truth, to get it out there. Because Lord knows the New York Times that won Pulitzer after Pulitzer after taking Adam Schiff's below board bullshit for 4 years weren't even curious about this stuff. In fact, even when Comer and Grassley and the like have been handing over what looks like smoking guns, it doesn't make the newspaper. You know? I mean, so like literally they are the only check and balance that we have at this point.
Yeah, that's right. For conservatives, the most important thing we can do in 2024 is win. It is it's like nothing else matters. Nothing else matters in this presidential election besides winning.
Well, but the problem for Donald Trump is you got now this indictment out of Fulton County in Georgia, and the prosecutor wants the trial date to be March 4th.
Super Tuesday.
The day before Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know, so every voter on Super Tuesday is going to have that hanging over their head.
And also, did you love the fact that everybody has been like, here's the indictment, you got 3 days to show up. And the Georgia prosecutor was like, oh, how about 10 days? What does that coincide with? The Republican debate.
Right.
Like literally, we could see a situation next week where Donald Trump is turning himself into state authorities in Georgia for mug shots, which is absurd.
It's disgusting.
Disgusting and absurd. Like you don't know who the fuck Donald Trump
Seriously.
is. I mean, mug shots are so you have a record of who a human being is
in case you need
that you're processing. Is anybody going to is anyone going to mistake Donald Trump from somebody else.
He's probably the most recognizable person on earth, right?
On earth.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's not like Donald Trump is just powerless to shape this as well. I mean, he's going to use this all to his benefit.
Well, I think they've handed it to him. I mean,
right.
That's the open question. What you're getting at is the open question. Is it like, okay, why would you do that? Like, why would you put on the eve of the Republican debate, which Trump has not said whether he's going to show or not, a media circus, which he will and has forever been able to work for his own benefit, to overshadow whatever anybody else is doing in this discussion. Like, I don't know the answer to that. Like a cynical or a conspiratorial point of view would be like, well, they want him to have the sunlight all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing it for the same reason Chuck Schumer spent in Republican primaries in 2022. They love to try to divide Republicans. That's why they're doing all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. But like, Trump is a willing participant in that as well. Like, this indictment comes down out of Fulton County, and what does he announce? I'm going to have a press conference at Bedminster with irrefutable proof of the fraud in 2020. He wants to have that conversation too, even though every single poll will tell you it's to his detriment.
Yeah.
It's to his detriment to continue to have this conversation, but he can't help himself either.
Well, it's why he's where he is. I mean, I think you said on Tuesday's show, which I violently agree with, that had Donald Trump tipped his cap after November 20 and said, I hope good luck to you, I'll see you soon, rather than going through that 3-month period, he would have double-digit leads in the polls. People would be nostalgic for Donald Trump's leadership in the White House. There would be no primary.
Right. You would have seen him he would have been the first Republican presidential candidate in history to get over 80 million votes in the popular vote. He would have blown Joe Biden out. There would have been no question about the suburban vote. You hear a lot of question about like, the suburbs going to vote for Trump. They would have all loved him. This is a very socially motivated group of voters. They're not going to tell their friends that they're voting for Donald Trump because of social pressure. You can like that, you can not like that, but unless the social pressures exist, the other direction, they're not going to vote for Trump. And I'm hopeful that Trump has a very good case to be made, that all of a sudden he's got something special up his sleeve that we haven't seen in quite some time, that he can bring these guys back.
Well, he's been a Houdini. He's been a Houdini throughout his entire life, but there's some polling that it was out today that would put a finer point on all of this. There was an Associated Press poll. And look, before everybody says like, okay, it's a mainstream media poll, look, having done this for 20 years, I can tell you there are some polls that aren't worth a shit that are mainstream media polls. There are others that are way better than private polls. And we've seen it all, right? I mean, if you're online, you see every single thing, every iteration.
Another way of putting this, privately, when the Trump team sees this, they're like, okay, we need to come up with a strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's the truth.
Anytime you're interviewing 1,100 primary voters and you're doing it with the right methodology, it sets you back a little bit. Like, you got to take a look at it.
Again, 1,100 is the sample size. You'll see a lot of these polls. It'll be a sample size of 200, 300, 400, 600 is usually the gold standard, but 1,100 is a large sample size. It means they took a lot of time and spent a lot of money to put this poll together.
Yep. So here's the bottom line. 35% of Americans have a favorable view of Donald Trump, 62% unfavorable. Now, you can look at that and be like, well, I mean, it's not totally dissimilar from Joe Biden in a lot of ways. I mean, they're both deeply unpopular with the center of the electorate, which is the only way that you get to that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Here's what cut for me. There was a question that was about whether you will definitely not vote or probably not vote for a candidate. the definite or probable for Donald Trump was 64%. 64% of the American general electorate said they will definitely or probably not vote for Donald Trump. That number is unprecedented. Mm-hmm. That number is insane for somebody who has ubiquitous name ID. You could find that in somebody where you have a third of the electorate who doesn't know who you are, right? That kind of chasm. But when everybody knows who you are, to say 64% is not going to vote for you, that's a big deal. Here's the worst deal. 53 of those 64 are in the definite category. 53.
That's brutal.
53. Now, you go through the crosstabs as I did today, and Joe Biden is right where you expect him to be, 42, 43, somewhere in that. Mm-hmm. You know what that is? That's the Republican electorate.
You're talking about the definitely will not vote for. Yeah.
The definite.
Right.
Right?
Right. The problem is Trump is over 50%.
Yeah, I mean, the 42, 43% number is where you expect an incumbent president who is divisive and shitty like Joe Biden, who is basically coalesced his opposition. Mm-hmm. That's where you expect that number to be. 64 and 53 is in a very different deal. And like, look, you're going to listen to a lot of shows, and there's a lot of conservative media that will hand wave through this. And I noticed on Twitter today, there was a whole bunch of people who were like, you know, oh, you don't understand how mad people are. Dude, get out of your fucking ecosystem. Get out of your sphere.
Dude, the people are mad on both sides. There was a guy who said in a reply, one of the replies to your tweet, he's like, you don't understand, there are 12 million more votes for Trump. And my immediate thought was, wait a minute, there's 16 more million votes against Trump.
Yeah.
So it's incumbent upon Trump, if he's our nominee, to figure out how do you solve this problem.
They need to explain
you cannot just pretend like it's going to be different this time.
They need to explain
this. You have to solve this problem.
They need to explain this.
There's so many reasons for these numbers to be where they are. You know, whether it's, as I believe, that there are two systems of justice and that every media organization has been hell-bent on destroying Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, the facts are where they are. And that campaign needs to think about how are we going to turn this around? Because that is, I mean, that's like a red light.
You can't
You're in the cockpit and it's a red light and the alarms are going off.
You cannot rely on the media.
You can't, but you just can't wish cast. Like this is, look, we can complain all we want about the media. You can complain about higher education. You can complain about Hollywood. You can complain about corporate America. You can complain about whatever. All the complaints in the world aren't going to win you an election. The question is whether you can get there or not.
The numbers were never here in 2016 is the thing.
Well, they weren't anything like that.
Nothing. That's the thing is, you know, this is a completely unique situation that he finds himself in right now, and it has to be addressed. This is not one of the ones that like. Well, yeah, it's like Duncan said. Oh, it's a 300-person poll. You know, who gives a damn? When you have such a large sample size, and this is dire. This is dire. That campaign needs to be completely focused on how do we turn this around, especially given the incoming barrage that they have.
Yeah, I mean, look, the problem is the Republican primary electorate's not holding him accountable to answer for these things.
And that's the issue. What you just said, and I want you to explain this more, Duncan. I've never seen a greater gap.
Yeah.
There is a 35% gap between his favorable overall and his favorable within the Republican Party. This is the kind of thing that we saw take place in Arizona and is currently happening in Arizona, which makes general elections particularly difficult to win there, is that you've got a primary electorate that is so entirely divorced from a general electorate that getting to 51 is very, like, it takes a whole bunch of very unique circumstances outside of your control to move those numbers. Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, number one, he's leading by 30, 40 points in these polls in the Republican primary. So I feel like if you're the former president, like, you feel like you can procrastinate on this as long as the voters who are going to make you the nominee allow you to not have to answer those questions.
Yeah.
You know, he flew to Iowa and he was there for, an hour and then flew back, right? Mm-hmm. He's talking about not showing up at the debate next week. right?
Yeah.
So unless the voters in this Republican primary hold them accountable to answer these questions, I mean, yeah, I can't blame them for not having the answers because nobody's holding his feet to the fire. I mean, like, that's our job as voters. And
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And this is I'd like to hear all of your views on this. Do you think that the weakness of Joe Biden, the fact that this man is what we see on a day-to-day basis, that his approval rating is where it is, his approval on all of the issues that voters care about is where it is, has given Republican voters a false sense of confidence about their ability to defeat Joe Biden with anything?
No. I mean, I don't think that. Maybe other people have different opinions. I think for most Republican primary voters, they look at the fact that Russiagate was fake and the deep state and the Democrats and the media tried to basically steal Donald Trump's first term, right? And then they feel like the 2020 election was unfair to Donald Trump, that he deserves this nomination because they tried to take it from him before.
So electability and beating Joe Biden doesn't factor into it at all?
Well, it certainly isn't going to factor into it at all when you've got the other candidates out there running against Donald Trump saying things were really unfair to Donald Trump. Because if things were unfair to Donald Trump, then in the electorate you're trying to persuade, they're going to stick with the guy because they agree with you that it's unfair to Donald Trump.
You're only ironing in the stain, essentially.
Right. Like table stakes, like what they already believe is things were unfair to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right? So if every statement is qualified with how unfair things are to Donald Trump, the 2020 election was unfair to Donald Trump, the indictments are unfair to Donald Trump, well, they're just going to stick with Trump.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't care whether your opinion is on either side of this issue. I'm just talking about how the impression is left on your average Republican primary voter. That's why he's up 30 points.
One thing I don't understand why that you make a very, very,
that's
very
that's
important
very
point,
accurate.
and I don't understand why the opponents are not driving. It's unfair to every Republican. Look at the way the media and the establishment treated George Bush in the last few years of his term. Every little thing, they were like, oh, Bush, blah, Bush, Bush, Bush. You know, like whoever the Republican, if it's Ron DeSantis,
even laughably
if it's
Mitt
Nikki
Romney
Haley, if
with
it's
like the binders full of women.
Exactly,
Right, but
Mitt Romney. If it's Nick, we could have Christie or anybody as our nominee, and they're going to be unfair.
Let me put a finer point on it here with one thing. Ron DeSantis' victory of 20 points in Florida doesn't mean anything if you iron into the electorate that things were unfair to Donald Trump. The electability argument goes out the window. It's going to be secondary to the electorate if that's not also matching the rest of your rhetoric with regards to Donald Trump. You can't qualify every statement. You can't talk about how things were unfair to Donald Trump in 2020 and then expect people to be like, okay, well, now I'll go with you.
Yeah.
That's not how people think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and he has a vested interest. I mean, the problem is when you iron those things in, unfairly or fairly, what you're telling voters is you've got to fix that. And now you have one candidate in the field who has a vested interest in fixing it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, there's one candidate in this field who has a vested interest in dismantling the Department of Justice for obvious reasons. Now, they've all talked about it, and I actually believe that there are several candidates who have the ability to functionally do it because of their experience and the teams and people around them. But if you're just a layman voter and you're looking at this, you're like, well, I mean, this guy's, it's literally his freedom. He's the, I can guarantee that guy's going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that he's all in on it, right?
Yeah.
He has to be.
So, but Smug, what's your take on that?
I mean, I think Duncan broke it down extremely convincingly. I think that's a perfect description of when we've been talking to folks out in Iowa, when we've been talking to actual primary voters, that is the sense that animates them. You know, there is this sense that, yes, it was completely unjust the way that Trump was treated while he was president. The fact that we now know all those 50-some former intelligence agency officials signing off saying that, oh yeah, Hunter's laptop is 100% Russian disinformation. Yeah, ahead of an election, that is completely unfair. But if your message is, hey, this was unfair to Donald Trump and you're running against him, I don't see how that's a message to get you to win. And I think, again, I have to reiterate, when you have a poll that has these kind of numbers, because this is 100% like warning lights, like sirens are going off. This has to be addressed immediately. Like, this is the first thing your campaign needs to think about when they wake up tomorrow morning and every day going forward.
Because you run the risk of taking voters for granted.
Totally. That's it. Yep.
And not giving them an answer on how you're going to get to the finish line.
Because this isn't, once this is baked in, it's baked in.
And I mean, the problem is Donald Trump is having to spend the vast majority of his war chest on legal fees right now. And rhetorically, with earned media, he's talking about 2020 still.
Yeah.
So this problem,
let me give you a stat on that.
Won't be solved.
7 in 10, 70% of Americans, 70% of Americans disagree with him on that. What you just said.
Yeah.
70.
7-0.
So, like, what I'll say to you as a listener, and look, I love the Choose Your News adventure. Ruthless wouldn't exist without it. But somebody's got to tell you the truth about this. And the reality is that there is 70%. You couldn't get 70% of Americans to agree on fucking anything.
Yeah.
And you have 70% of Americans who think that the election 2020 argument is a loser. And it is concrete. It's not moving. I mean, what AP said in this thing is Americans largely disagree with Trump's contention the 2020 election was stolen from him. 7 in 10 say that Biden was legitimately elected. A number that's been consistent in the last year.
It's not moving.
This is not an outlier.
And the thing is when you're looking at information to make a decision on, right? That number has not moved. The 70% number has not moved. What has moved? Biden's approval rating continues to go down. Now, if you're running against him, what does this information tell you? The answer is, I need to be focused on, how do I say
forward?
Biden is terrible. Going forward.
Yep.
What's the difference? Because right now, every message you're seeing in all of the polling is that, like, Americans feel like things are going in the wrong direction. So are you going to say, here's how I'm going to make things different in the future? Or are you going to be like, okay, let's go back a little bit and let's talk about some old shit? The campaign needs to completely be focused. I mean, I can't say enough. This is like the sirens are going off. You have to fix this problem immediately. And the solution to this, 100%, I believe, is you have a deeply unpopular president. You have Americans who are completely fed up with the circumstances that we're living in right now. Crime is rampant. Stores are like, there are states in this country where you can walk into a convenience store and everything is behind a locked piece of glass.
Yeah.
Because Americans live in complete state of mayhem and carnage. There's the prices for food, for the basic necessities to live. Gas prices are right back where they were. $4 a gallon in most of the country. These problems are pressing Americans every single day of their lives. And they want somebody who's going to fix that immediately. And that's looking forward. I think you have to look at these numbers and focus on what the American people themselves are telling you.
And another question is, are you using every opportunity to make your case? Here is another poll this is a separate poll came out from Quinnipiac. I don't know if you guys saw this. You talked about 70 being a big number. They asked Republican voters about whether they think that it is, let me just read this question. How important is it that all presidential candidates who qualify for the first debate participate? Very important and somewhat important. What would you guess that number it is?
With this environment, 30?
84%.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus, that
People
blows me
want
away.
their candidates to show up and make the argument and stick it to Biden to demonstrate that they can win, make the argument. They know the media is against the Republicans. Republicans want to win. Voters are so tired of losing and losing and losing, and maybe Trump is the guy to win. But I think it's incumbent upon him, at least if you listen to this 84%, according to the Quinnipiac poll, it's incumbent upon him to show up and explain why.
And it's kind of like what you were alluding to, Holmes. It would be so easy. Like, this is the cheat code for Trump, is you talk about, remember what life was like when I was president, and now think about that. Wouldn't you love to go back to a situation where on the world stage, America was so respected. We were energy independent.
We had
the border was
full
secure.
employment.
Full, you look at any polling from Trump's period as presidency, And the vast majority of Americans felt like economically, the next year would be even better than the current year.
Right.
I remember that poll year
Yeah.
after year. Yes, I think next year is going to be even better. The Americans felt this great sense
Yeah, it was
of
almost like
opportunity
a
and
Reagan
prosperity.
1980s type feeling.
Totally. And now it's almost the exact opposite. And that statistic right there, the fact that it frustrates Democrats so much, where they try to cook up like these words in their focus groups of, oh, Bidenomics, let's just try to completely trick people into believing their daily lives are not difficult. That's the signal. Democrats are trying to come up with all these excuses and lies to make American people believe that their daily lives are not terrible right now. For Donald Trump to focus on, here's the contrast. Remember what it was like when I was in office? Now think about how it is right now. If he just goes state to state and hammers that in, these numbers start changing.
Yeah.
But that requires his campaign being forward-looking and focusing on, hey, look, I have a reputation of making things great for you. I'm going to make them great for you. Not be like, okay, let's talk about this shit that happened.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, and I'll put a period on this, is it would be different if there was a guy who hasn't had the capability of turning that around and actually focusing on that and uniting a party and uniting independents on the message that you just discussed. I think we're getting to a high watermark with some of these indictments, and based upon what the press availability that he announced next week, in addition to his appearance before a Georgia state court, it makes that more difficult. And so I'm worried about it. Anyway, two things I want to get to quickly. Did you guys see the climate cult? Did you see this situation?
Yes.
This was unbelievable. So ABC had the audacity to recognize that the sky was blue.
It's shocking. Usually you don't see mainstream media state facts, but they did.
So they printed a headline, "Why Climate Change Can't Be Blamed for the Maui Wildfires."
Yeah.
And they go into some detail about
They're like, here's the truth.
Yeah, here's the truth. So then they get dive bombed on social media. And like, well, sooner or later, here's the headline, "Why Climate Change Can't Be Blamed Entirely for Maui Wildfires."
They actually caved to like a bunch of lunatics being like, oh, well, it's got to be climate change. They're just getting ratioed to hell of people demanding they say climate change is the reason. And they caved. They did exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
and this is the thing. So I went in on this because this is completely insane. It's important to note that we now live in a world where actual news can be changed by these climate death cult people on Twitter, that we now know power lines fell down, the power company did not turn them off, and the evacuation sirens did not sound.
It sounds like climate change to me.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. Is like we now
you fuckers
know
with your hairspray and your SUVs.
You know who did that? King Cole.
Yeah. I mean, the fact
the
that
miners are to blame again.
you have this group who, in my opinion, has some kind of like a mental health issue where they're like, if we kill enough cows, so you got to stop them from farting. Everyone's got to eat bugs. You have to own nothing. Then maybe like power lines would have fell over and sirens would have gone off. Like the belief that trying to turn this into a political issue when so many Americans have died and lost everything and say, no, we're going to ignore the facts. You have to believe in my little social issue.
You got to go back to Rahm Emanuel's axiom, which is never let a good crisis go to waste. It's what he said. You remember the deep the Deepwater Horizon?
Yeah, Deepwater Horizon.
That leaked into the Gulf of Mexico. The Democrats' reaction to that was not, oh, how do we clean that up so fast? It was, oh, how do we use it to push left-wing ideology?
Exactly.
These people are deranged,
Yeah.
and that's why we have to knock them out of power.
And also, like, not for nothing, but like, have you ever encountered some of these people who are like single-issue climate change people?
No one wants to encounter. They're hurt. These are the people.
They're
terrifying people.
It's like you can't actually have a conversation in real. These are crazy.
These are the people who sit in a chain gang in the middle of a highway and stop everybody from getting to work. You've seen these videos.
Yeah.
I know everybody in the audience.
And
has
they'll
seen
like
these videos.
they'll like glue themselves to like a piece of art in a museum,
right?
And it's like, okay, great. Ruin the day for me and
Yeah.
my kids so we can listen to your fucking mental health issues.
Dude, environment
Campbell's soup on a Renoir.
Environmental activists are like comic book villains. You know, it's like the fucking Joker walked into the museum. You know, it's like, how are all these things that people enjoy, how can I destroy
I mean,
them?
legitimately, like a month ago when they're like, I
Eat
think we can
bugs.
find a way to block the sun. It was like, what?
No,
How
I
did
mean,
we
it's
get
just
here?
terrible. It's
And the
just-
fact that like, the news is now willing to completely cave to that, it's horrific.
Well, they've the vernacular of the climate change left has now been entirely adopted by all the mainstream media. By the way, everything that they say, I mean, it's not global warming anymore. It's not global cooling as it was in the '80s. What we're talking about now is climate change. So anything that happens, a fire, a hurricane,
if it gets hot, if it gets cold, they're still like, oh,
cold,
climate change.
climate change, climate change. All right. So last thing before we get to this interview, and we also have to play a game today.
Have to play a game.
But this is the last thing, because it's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
Furries.
This is a lot of folks ask what happened to Beto. Folks may remember Beto was this horrible guy who ran for Senate in Texas. I've heard this from Democrat campaign staffers that their digital director has PTSD from the Minions turning Beto as a furry into such a powerful SEO thing that, like, if you Google Beto, the first things that pop up is that Beto is a furry because there's video evidence the guy dressed up like a furry, right? And he tried to hide from that, and he was held accountable for that, and it ruined his life.
He was held accountable.
He was held accountable for that.
Like just another example of you doing the people's work.
Like he's Woodward and Bernstein.
All right, so a fight, this is according to the Daily Mail, a fight broke out at a furries meetup when a man was caught filming members of the group at a California beach. Two people in black wolf costumes got into an altercation at Huntington Beach on Saturday after a man was recording them and refused to leave, with some commentators suggesting that he is a scorned ex-lover of one of the participants.
And this is the important thing, is that the furry thing is, you know, it's like a gateway into horrors. Like all the horrors you can imagine, it's like they're trying to mask it up under like a furry animal. This is like the Disney approach, right? Like it's the most evil, twisted shit, and they try to cover it up with some like cartoon animal. That's the furry thing. You know, Beto part and parcel. He was the first warning sign. It's the canary in the coal mine.
Accusing all of Disney?
All of them. All of them. Done with those people. Done with all of them. So like, I mean, I thought first of all, this is just like your standard run of the mill. Okay, this is a furry fight. These are silly, weird people. It's kind of funny. They're having a fight on the beach. There's even an image. You just see it like furry squaring.
They're squaring up.
They're fighting. But then they're like, oh, this is like a jilted former lover. That's when I stopped reading. I was like, this is the whole thing about furries and why you got to hold them accountable. Make sure they're not put in our government like Beto tried to do.
Well, and you don't want to offend the sensibilities of Comfortably Smug. Anytime we get into kind of sexual tension, he's not comfortable.
I mean, there's children listening to the show.
He's not comfortable.
We gotta hold these people accountable.
Yeah, no, it's very, very important.
I just think anybody who goes to a beach, I assume, in hot weather, decides to wear a giant fur costume and
charges.
Sweat all day.
Charges.
Can you
100%.
imagine the smell? The smell of those people?
No.
Disgusting.
No, I mean charges, and I don't need a judge and jury.
Yeah.
Just charges. We go, and we're moving on to the next.
I heard they have great beaches at Gitmo.
All right, fellas, let's play a game.
Let's play a game.
Well, it is Thursday, and that can mean only one thing. King of the Hill.
God, and I, by the way, am a reigning champion.
How much did you pay Smug at the live show for that 2-round knockout?
So as folks saw, Duncan,
what in the world?
I mean, he brought some good tweets, but like your second tweet, Holmes, was just like this knockout. And because I was an unbiased judge, I had to give you the win.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So who? I'm confused. So I know I am playing this week. Who's
Right.
judge? Who's bailiff?
I'm bailiff.
Okay.
Because I just played, and then Ashbrook, you're judge, right?
I am judge.
Okay, and
so like I don't have to worry about saying that Duncan's tweets sucked. He's not the judge, so I could be honest.
Well, I might
for garbage. I almost won that.
I might be the timekeeper though. Who are you bringing to? Because you've got Frum,
I
right?
got Frum. He's a two-time
Yeah.
champion. I'm on the verge of running the table and being put on the layaway
Because of
list.
the Jordan rule, three
Yeah.
wins and you're out for arrest. Okay, so who are you bringing?
I'm bringing Jen Rubin.
Jen Rubin, our brainworm queen, is back. Let's go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the blue corner, fighting out of the Washington Post for a chance to regain her crown, Jennifer Brain Worms Rubin. And now, fighting from a blinking cursor on an empty Word document, and current champion of the world, David, where did you come from?
Such a great title.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
And I feel like after 2 straight wins, I'm wearing like the Tyson towel on this.
Oh.
I'm just like straight facing it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like the eye to eye, like the.
Are you going to touch gloves?
Nope.
I mean, you
just staring.
I appreciate the overconfidence because I'm bringing nukes.
Okay. This is David Frum, and he is, quote, tweeting.
Let's get that number.
It is going to be Exhibit 3, Wolf. Exhibit 3 shows the DeSantis War Room had tweeted out something about DeSantis complying with the pledge in order to participate in the RNC debate. The pledge is, of course, that you will support the Republican nominee for president. Frum's take on this is DeSantis laying the groundwork to end his campaign and endorse Trump. I mean, I can't think of a more simplistic and wish-casted point of view than something like that.
I mean, look.
Frum doesn't exist without Trump.
May I speak, Judge?
You may.
Not just wish casting. I think it's the inverse. Like, I think DeSantis is trying to box in Trump to make him sign the pledge. I feel like Frum is exactly the opposite of what the truth is.
It's an amazing take.
I'll note it happened on Sunday, August the 13th, as DeSantis was crisscrossing the state.
Yeah, right. No, and they literally caught him in Iowa doing it.
Counsel?
Could I get Exhibit 5 for Jen Rubin, please? This is on the heels of all the Hunter Biden news breaking. Jen Rubin says, once more inexcusable, ridiculous hype about Hunter Biden and false equivalence display. That God, not thank God, that God, democracy doesn't depend entirely on mainstream media. Like, if we don't let Hunter Biden off the hook, democracy is toast. This is the best possible take from the Washington Post conservative columnist. It's inexcusable to try to hold Hunter Biden accountable. It's just a little bit of corruption, folks.
Counsel, when she refers to ridiculous hype about Hunter Biden and false equivalence display, what do you interpret? What specifically do you think she's talking about?
Well, I think she's specifically trying to say that why is Hunter Biden and the Biden crime family being held accountable? As the conservative columnist, I only want Trump to be tried for crimes. I think that's the false equivalence. When people bring up that there's a false equivalence, when there are 2 tiers of justice in this country, where this Hunter Biden case has been going for over 5 years at this point, and then in Georgia, the DA can say, oh, I hope in the next 6 months we get this settled.
I appreciate that she used to be pro-democracy, Jennifer pro-democracy Rubin, and then she was Jennifer pro-voting Rubin, and now she's Jennifer now at Threads Rubin.
Yeah.
Threads, of course, the new competitor to Twitter.
Full self-promotion.
Yeah.
Where also the beauty of it is I'm now at Threads.
But I'm still tweeting.
Well, Jen Rubin, her new name notwithstanding and a reference to Hunter Biden notwithstanding, she has brought better in the past, and I'm confident she will continue to bring better in the future. I just don't think that particular take bests David Frum suggesting that Ron DeSantis wants to lose as he's crisscrossing the state of Iowa, so therefore First round goes to David Frum.
Guy's got like $100 million in the bank, and Frum's right in the epitaph.
By the way, folks, I don't know if this has ever happened. We'll have to check in with T-Rec. 5 straight out of the big guy.
Oh,
2 sweeps. 5 straight.
Order in the court.
I'm just saying.
Wolf, can I get Exhibit 4? This is Jen Rubin saying that Vice President Harris has returned to a comfortable role, making the case against the defeated and multi-indicted former President Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. That is a comfortable role for Kamala Harris. Everyone knows she's a great messenger, a very capable speaker in public. And Jen Rubin, the conservative columnist at the Washington Post, thinks she's the best messenger for the job.
Okay, counsel?
They've been long promoting messaging of Kamala. I'm just going to go for it. Because I feel like I am. It's like a pitcher in the 9th inning. You just have to finish it off for the no-hitter.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go for it. I'm giving you nukes here.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, the number one rule when you're pitching a no-hitter is you don't talk about the no-hitter.
Well, wait till you see what I've got. Sometimes you just got the stuff, pal. Sometimes you just got the stuff and you can talk about whatever the fuck you want.
Okay.
All right, so David Frum is reacting to a speech that Ron DeSantis gave.
What's the number?
This is Exhibit 1.
Okay.
Where it was about it was primarily about the immigration issue, but it was about fentanyl and about human trafficking.
Okay.
Right? Coming across our borders, in which he outlined his solutions. Ron DeSantis previously proposed U.S. naval stop and search of Chinese vessels en route to Mexico. That was not crazy enough, apparently. So now he's proposing U.S. drone attacks inside of Mexico. These are acts of war.
He'd know.
Don't bomb Mexico. I'm not
That's
sure.
pretty
I
weak.
think I think you need to take a second.
Pretty weak.
Take a second to understand what he's arguing against. What he's arguing against is the very coherent policy that Ron DeSantis outlined, which is if fentanyl is being shipped from China into Mexico and trafficked into our country, that shouldn't be done.
I think you have to be on
You
fentanyl
shouldn't-
to
you
argue
shouldn't
for
monitor it.
Kamala Harris. I mean, if we're
You
talking about
shouldn't
who's a
monitor it.
wilder take.
Even worse, the fact that, and we saw it on video on Fox over the last week, that there's cartels operating with like AK-47s on the border, that you don't have a right as a country to go drone attack the shit out of that stuff that's coming across your border. Like, very coherent, I would say it's probably a 60% issue within this country. What he's saying, Mr. War, I don't know of any war that David Frum has not endorsed. Like, Bailiff, can you think of one?
No.
I can't think of one.
Man loves war.
He found one, and it's Mexico. That's the problem.
Counsel, you've made a very persuasive case. You certainly have. And it's clear that David Frum has an axe to grind when it comes to Ron DeSantis. He's against sort of common sense ideas to stop China from bringing fentanyl into this country, common sense ideas to do something about the problems in Mexico. And he's jumping on that, as he has in previous occurrences. So attacking Ron DeSantis seems to be sort of like a routine for David Frum, our champion. And the only thing worse than attacking Ron DeSantis as routine, I think, is defending and lifting Kamala Harris up on a pedestal as routine, as we saw with Jen Rubin, the so-called conservative columnist who is putting Kamala Harris on a plane with Winston Churchill. And for that reason, Jen Rubin wins round 2.
Okay.
There goes that no-hitter.
Well, I will just say,
I heard there was another.
I will just say, if you remember, there was a perfect game years ago, the Detroit Tigers, where there was a first base umpire who called a clearly out base runner safe, and it ruined the perfect game.
So you're saying our judge
and that's
is
what we
crooked?
just saw here today.
Counsel.
Wow.
Noted.
That is nutty.
Wow. Attacking the judge.
That is wild.
So I've got a couple of different ways to play this next one.
Does it start with insulting the judge?
Well, you, sir, in terms of insulting people, I feel like have no ground to stand on whatsoever. My co-counsel here is quite offensive in every right. But I'm going to pull out a little bit of a wild card on this one, where I feel like David Frum is telling on himself. And it requires the audience to understand a little bit of how special this tweet is. Ruining karaoke.
What's the exhibit
number?
Exhibit 2. Exhibit 2.
I mean, that's the third warning for the council to remember.
You know what?
The
Fuck
number.
off, bailiff.
Oh, he's out of control. Is that
Fuck
a
off.
Bailiff is an officer of the court, and he will be respected.
I just care about the audience on YouTube.
Well,
wow.
I got many suggested acts for you.
Counsel.
He continues attacking the
Counsel. That's a warning.
Unbelievable.
Ruining karaoke for everybody by insisting it's Stoneman's cavalry that tore up the tracks again, not so much cavalry. Now, let me explain what that means.
It means counsel knows what the judge is interested in.
Yeah.
Please proceed.
So as we know, there's a famous song, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. And I felt like this is particularly interesting for Your Honor because of the death of the lead singer of the band who made this song famous.
Very sad day.
Very sad day. And in that song, what David Frum is referring to is the indictment in Georgia. And he's singing about it. And he's trying to sing about it by singing The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. But what he's doing by telling on himself with this particular tweet is in Leon Helms, the drummer and probably most famous member of the band.
Wait, this is about the Georgia indictment?
Yes. By the most famous member, Leon Helms. His lyrics are, it's Stoneman's cavalry that tore up the tracks again in that song.
What's the date on this tweet?
This is August 12 at 9:22 p.m.
What was the date on Trump getting indicted? This tweet's from before then.
He's talking.
You're lying to the court.
No, he's talking about the
lie.
indictments.
News about the coming Georgia indictment broke early last week.
Oh, that's okay. We can continue.
I mean, if you'd like to examine a
continue.
list of tweets before this that gives you his state of mind, I'd be happy to entertain the court in that proceeding.
Counsel, please proceed. Libs were frothing at the mouth a week ahead of time.
Okay. So in Leon Helms, it's the Stoneman's cavalry that tore up the tracks again. There was one song that was remade by Joan Baez that said so much cavalry rather than Stoneman's cavalry, which tells you everything about who David Frum is hanging out with when he's quote unquote ruining karaoke for everybody. If you don't know the band and you don't know the song, fuck off.
Okay.
Terrible and weak take.
Well, we got a history of rock and roll, at least.
Horrible take. I'm ready to win this right now. Mr. Wolf, can we get Exhibit 6? Fanny Willis did not indict Trump. 23 Georgians did. This is someone who's in the Washington Post, completely fundamentally misrepresenting how the law works in this country.
Well, is that a misrepresentation? I mean,
that is an absolute.
That's a grand jury. She's technically correct.
The indictments are brought up by the prosecutor. That's just how when
yeah,
you
but
hit Google,
they
that's how it
return
works.
an indictment. I mean, that is just the way.
So
the
to
law
let
works.
Fanny Willis off the hook on this, where as we all remember, she was shouting at the press conference, beating her chest, taking credit for this. And Jen Rubin's like, no. Actually, I'm going to recreate the way the law works. As everyone knows, it's a prosecutor who brings up an indictment. And so without giving you a 40-year history of rock and roll,
David Frum's friends think Joan Baez sang the night they drove Old Dixie down. That's just what I'm saying. That's where I'm at.
My argument does not take 40 minutes.
Judge.
So, Jen Rubin, ever the press secretary for anything that Democrats care about, is maybe incorrect on the number of Georgians who voted to indict, because they actually didn't release the number of people who voted to indict.
And the beauty is they even released
to be a majority in that state. Those are the rules.
They reduced they revealed the indictment before it was even voted on by any Georgians.
And for the same reason that Jen Rubin won the second round, I'm just a little bit at a loss for her dominance here in the third, because she's just sort of doing the same thing she does over and over again, playing press secretary to the Democrat side. And Jen Rubin has won this over and over and over again, and I'm just not sure that take is on par with some of the great ones she's offered in the past. Suggesting that the Joan Baez version of the night they drove Old Dixie down, within days of the death of
Robbie,
the great, the heart behind the band, and everything that David Frum has
it's Robbie
done
Robertson
to this point, gives me no other choice but to choose David Frum as the champion once again.
I got robbed. The judge is crooked.
No, I'll tell you what
Kangaroo
this is.
court.
I will tell you what this is.
This is what happens. You have a left-wing, deep state judge.
No, what
you can't get a fair trial.
What you've done
you got
here,
a free Trump.
what you've done here, is that you have a counsel who studied the judge and jury.
This is a laughable court.
As bailiff, I'm glad they stole it from you. You deserve it.
This is what happens.
You're full of shit as
there
a judge.
There are two tiers of justice in this country.
We've studied. We put time in examining the emotions of this particular judge and jury. We know what the death of Robbie Robertson meant to this particular judge and jury. We know that he's a connoisseur of the last waltz.
I'm going to be the worst bailiff ever.
However, this judge is also a very, very fair jurist.
I agree.
He's not. He's a crooked deep state operative.
I agree.
And I'm going to be the bailiff and be.
He never
just
let
a
you
horrible
never
person.
never lets his preference.
So it'd be the same as every other day.
All right, let's go to the interview.
This episode is fueled by the American Petroleum Institute. No matter your politics, no matter the debate, one thing is certain. America runs on affordable, reliable energy. America's policies must recognize that Americans benefit from making, moving, and improving the energy right here in America. Today, America's oil and natural gas industry supports nearly 11 million jobs and provides American energy to keep this nation strong. Learn how at api.org.
We're back at the Iowa State Fair, and we are with Governor Doug Burgum. Listen, Governor, you've got some interesting tastes here. You can get almost anything you want from a food standpoint. You got some ideas.
Well, I think it's important, if none of you have had an opportunity to eat rattlesnake, that we get some right here. And I've pre-screened this. This is all free range, no GMO, organic.
No farm rattlesnake.
It's like, wild caught. I mean, this is the most organic thing you can get. And the guy here that owns this stand has got a great product, and we're gonna grab some rattlesnake nachos.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. This is great. Look at this place. Unbelievable. Here we are.
I'm Doug Burgum.
Chris Taylor.
Hey, Chris, I understand you're the owner. Evan said earlier you're coming down.
Yep.
We got some guys here that first time eating some rattlesnake. And,
really?
Yes.
I was just telling Evan, the first live rattlesnake I ever saw was in North Dakota, driving down a gravel road. I spent a bunch of time in North Dakota working over the years, actually when you were running for governor.
Well, the first rattlesnake I ever saw was in North Dakota, too. So we have that, we have that in common.
But these are wild-caught West Texas rattlesnakes.
See,
wow. All right,
Perfect.
wild caught. Well, what does that mean, wild caught?
Like when people go out and they catch the rattlesnakes, take them into a facility, they're slaughtered, for the skin, the venom, and the meat. Yeah, it's actually a pretty efficient system, but they have to go into a USDA facility for us to be able to sell it commercially like this.
So rattlesnakes are a renewable resource.
Absolutely.
They are, yeah.
And here we're going to get the meat and also a little of the venom because they have venom sauce that goes on top.
Oh, venom sauce.
Which is an awesome name for avocado sauce.
I love it. All right,
Well,
let's see what we got
we'll
here.
take 2 snake bite nachos.
2 of those.
Yeah.
We got you covered.
Oh, I love this. Governor, you're treating
I'm buying. There you go. Yep.
You're treating us. Thank you.
That's a true Republican. He takes care of it the way it's supposed to be done. He handles it.
That's right.
Handles it himself.
And we balance the budget at the end of the day, too. We get that done.
I love it. All right.
There's your change.
Thank
I'm
you.
watching,
Where's
I'm
your
watching
tip
the
jar right there?
preparation.
All right,
here.
there we
Well,
go.
it says tipsy, believe it or not.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank
My
you.
grandfather was born in North Dakota. I love the state.
Oh, great.
Nicest people you ever meet.
Whereabouts?
Right outside of Mandan, St. Anthony area. On a
Okay,
farm.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, beautiful
100
part of the
years
state.
ago. Yep.
I love that.
It is. It's a beautiful part of the state. I've been there quite a few times.
So is this? It's almost like a ground rattlesnake.
The rattlesnake meat is can be very gamey when it's wild. So this is made into a sausage, like a bratwurst sausage. So it has sausage seasoning, makes it very palatable. A touch of jalapeno and mixed together, and it just makes it a whole different item than you would expect. And if you've ever would have eaten rattlesnake in the past, bones are a problem. Well, the bones are easier to remove when you make it into sausage.
Oh, God, gee whiz! Look at that situation.
With the venom sauce.
Governor, I feel like you have the honors here.
Well, no, we got a second one coming up.
Just so you know, today
There we
we
go.
have a special. You're allowed to come back as many times as you want.
Look at
I
that.
love that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, this is fantastic. All right, fellas, we got to dig into this. Governor, you just go ahead.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
let's see.
I'm jumping right in here.
You're gonna be the guy.
Yep.
It's a good sauce.
It is. I got to make sure I get plenty of meat here on the thing. Oh, yeah.
Get some of that
I
rattlesnake
mean, it's
and
like a
venom.
dream in a paper dish.
It is. All of that.
Wow.
It's really good.
It's dynamite.
4 stars.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Oh, man.
Tell everybody.
Buddy, this is fantastic.
Glad you like it.
This is so good.
We've had a lot of recognition. We've won several awards with our products.
Oh man,
I gotta say, this is probably the best nachos I've had. These are phenomenal.
it's unbelievable.
What do you think, Ashbrook?
And it's also the best rattlesnake you've ever had, too, I think.
It's just incredible. The blend of flavor. The chips are good. It's the heat. It's so good. I gotta have another one.
It's sort of like a spicy chicken sausage or something, you know?
Yep.
Really good.
So have you done this before?
I was waiting for the taste like chicken.
Yeah, right. Have you done this? I mean, you're like a rattlesnake connoisseur at this point?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I've been on horseback in western North Dakota in the Badlands when gotten too close encounter with a snake, a rattlesnake, which is horses don't like snakes. They're smart about staying away from that. And then, of course, on the ranch, we've had to kill a few over the years.
Yeah, that's good to hear. What do you, when you come upon a rattlesnake, what's your first move?
Well, if you're out in the prairie and you don't have, and there's no, trees or woods, and there's like no stick that you could use to, take out a rattlesnake, and actually a lariat that you have for roping, actually works because you get them going, and then when they're coiled up, they're very hard to inflict the appropriate injury on. But if you get them snaking through the grass and then their spine is exposed, you can take a lariat across their back, and if you do that, then that stuns them, and you stun them, then you go there and then you step on their head with your boot, and then you just pull on the back, and then their head comes off. And then you don't have to,
I think that's like the greatest animal fighting story we've gotten on this show.
Serve you well in Washington.
Yeah, it will, but it's important because you don't want to get anywhere near the head. I mean, because that's the venom end of the deal. And so you just get that under your boot, and then it actually, if you push down hard with your heel and pull up, the head comes right off, and then you can just take the snake back, skin it, dry out the skins.
And this is then makes it nachos.
Yeah, there you go. And then you're in the nacho business.
What's the closest you've ever been to being bitten by one of these things?
Well, I'd say too close, because one of the first ones I killed was one that was kind of like right there.
No kidding.
Yeah, if you hear it before you see it, you're sort of too late once you hear the rattle, because that means they're getting ready to go.
Unbelievable.
Get your adrenaline going.
Man.
I think, the choice is getting more and more clear. If America wants the first rattlesnake killer president, You're looking at him right here. It's a pretty clear choice.
It is one of the differentiators. I get asked a lot about how do you differentiate yourself from the field. But
Well, it's a tough thing when you're running a Republican primary, and a lot of people are saying a lot of the same things. And how else do you think you sort of separate yourself from the field?
Well, I'm quite certain I'm the only chimney sweep, former chimney sweep in this whole field.
Right.
So that's a differentiator.
It's the Dick Van Dyke dance in particular. Is something
Exactly. There you go. That's right.
So what? You've been here a lot over the last few months. You've been here basically all week this week. What kind of things are you doing around here? You just getting into all the food, seeing all the animals? What's going on?
Well, we had a great fair side chat with Governor Kim Reynolds.
Oh, yeah.
She was fantastic. Love Kim. She and I have had a chance to work together for the last 6.5 years on Republican governors, and she's doing great things here in Iowa. So very fun to be interviewed by her this morning, by a fellow Midwestern governor, because both North Dakota and Iowa were both feeding the world and we're fueling the world.
Yeah.
So that part was a blast. And then we've had last night we zipped out of here. We're up in Dallas County for a great picnic in this beautiful wooded area. About 80 Republicans there that were doing an event up there. So it's been, and then meeting people, just making sure you got time to actually meet people.
Yeah.
People say, "How are you preparing for the debates?" And we're like, "We're going to the Iowa Fair." I mean, you're talking to real voters, real people that are concerned about inflation. They're concerned about the price of gas. They're concerned about what's going on with China. So we're talking about economy, energy, national security with regular people, and that's what we're doing. I mean, if you're a CEO of a company, you listen to customers.
Yeah.
If you want to deliver the winning product, and that's what we're doing.
Oh, I love that. So, all right. So the debates, you brought it up. You've obviously qualified early. One of the first qualifiers for the debate. You're looking at it, whether Trump shows, whether he doesn't show. Does it make a difference to you?
Every campaign's got to make their own decision about what they want to do or not do, but I know we're excited, and I'm sure we're the most excited candidate, because if you take a look at the 8 candidates that qualified, among those, we're the least well known.
Yeah.
And so there's upside for us. Say showing up, being there, being ourselves, do what we do every day with the regular people out here.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because look, as a national profile, you're relatively new to this. I mean, they're a couple months in. You already are at 6% or so in the polls in New Hampshire. You're starting to get nationwide coverage for the first time. This platform at the debate is probably the first time that you're going to have a huge audience for what it is that you have to say. I mean, are we nervous about this or not?
Yeah, no, I'm not nervous about that, but I'm laughing because when you're starting from scratch, you're going against people that have held national office, people that have been on national television, people that have run for president before. Literally, one of my buddies said, "Hey, I'm going to call this guy in D.C. Who I think could be a big supporter of yours in Texas." So he calls him and he tells him about me, and then the guy said, "That guy sounds great. He should run for president."
Just classic, right? Yeah. But it's funny because, I mean, look, you're the governor of a state. Clearly, people know you in North Dakota. They love you in North Dakota. You've posted big victories. But as you're going at nationwide, you've now had a chance to spend a significant amount of time in Iowa and New Hampshire. And you're looking at nationwide polls. Like, do you even care about that?
Don't care about the nationwide polls. Not a hoot about those. Because, again, going back to a business example, if you were launching a national product, but you said we're going to make it available in 2 states initially, and then that's where you were doing your launch for your products, and then those people said, "Wow, as soon as we heard about this, we really like it," and then we're shooting up in the polls in those 2 states. The rest of the nation doesn't even know we're an alternative yet. So we're starting from behind, but we love the position of having low name recognition with super high favorables as opposed to the alternative.
Yes, right. You're nowhere to go but up.
Yes, exactly.
It's not surprising you're taking off, because what people are interested in is in a well-rounded candidate. And you have a lot of experience with livestock. Have you walked through the barns? We were in the hog barn earlier. We haven't been over to see the steer. There's a horse barn.
Yeah.
What's your take on Iowa's fair from a livestock perspective?
Well, I of course, 4-H, FFA, all these programs. The First Lady is here joining us too, but she had a chance to visit the hog barn this morning when we were split up. We did get a chance to watch some of the dairy judging that's going on right now. But in North Dakota, we have a thing where to support the 4-H kids, with state leaders actually participate. And so last year, at the state fair, I was showing a steer at the state fair myself. but I had a high school kid that was coaching me on how to do the work with air steer, and so it got down to the wire, and I was like this close to the blue ribbon, and then I dropped the show stick during a handoff, and that cost me the whole thing. So I'm didn't get the gold medal, runner-up, but I'm definitely going back. But I think that experience of doing that. These 4-H kids, the work they put into these animals and showing this stuff, the skills that they learn, this is their Super Bowl, and that's just fantastic.
What do we do about that in North Dakota with
kids
that are in FFA?
Well, the other thing is, everybody talks about education, and here's all the things that are wrong. Well, I'll tell you some things that are right about it in North Dakota. One of the things that any educator will tell you that the best education for kids is hands-on, real-world, team-based learning. Well, who does that? 4-H, FFA, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. I mean, the merit-back program, those are achievement-based programs. So if a kid has got his wilderness first aid and his first responder and whatever through Boy Scouts, shouldn't he be able to get a half credit of high school health class? Yeah. So we passed a law in North Dakota where all of these programs actually count for high school credit. So those kids that are doing these after-school activities like this could all get credit. Then it frees up their time if they want to take, an advanced computer science or a language class or something. They're able to do it because they've got some of their requirements out of the way. So we have basically incorporated all the things that you're seeing here as part of this, hands-on, real-world, team-based learning in North Dakota, and it's fantastic. And any kid will tell you when they're 40 years old, they'll remember stuff they learned in 4-H, and they can't remember, what class they took.
Yeah, no, it's like applicable education. There's something to that, right?
Yes.
Have you could actually use the skills that you learned?
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah, it is a weird idea. It's just kind of like common sense, small town thinking that maybe we need a little more of.
Yeah, no kidding. So we tried any of these 27-degree beers yet?
I haven't, but I mean, there must be like a craft beer thing, because I saw a truck that had so many spouts on it. I don't know if you guys saw it. It looked like it was Iowa craft beer, but it's like every craft beer in Iowa in the same.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to let us know where that is.
It was, exactly. It had all the handles on the side.
It feels exactly right. I love it. Well, listen, I have no question in my mind that the more you get to know people, the more they're going to like you. I know that's been our experience. The question is, how do you go meet everybody, right? The fair is a great way to do it. You going to camp out here in Iowa, or are you just going to keep on touring everywhere?
Well, we're going to Iowa and New Hampshire, but of course Iowa is a great spot. Of course, the First Lady is not an incredible, not so secret weapon, but
that's right.
Bobcat's the largest manufacturer in North Dakota, and maybe the skid steer loaders. You see those, the Mini X's. But Catherine held a senior marketing job there for a number of years, so she's been down here before, like to the World Pork Expo, because you were in charge of
The manure market. I had all the glamorous jobs, so and the agriculture.
What exactly is the manure market?
Well, you use all those products to, move manure. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity with manure, and that was Bobcat's, opportunity to, get involved in some interesting markets. And boy, we do have to tell people though, if they haven't seen Sasquatch, who's the winning boar here at the, go see Sasquatch. He is one of the seven wonders of the world.
We got a glimpse of Sasquatch.
Not one of the 9 wonders.
and no offense, but you don't strike me as the manure lady.
Well, I have other skills and other, areas of interest, but
multifaceted.
Yep, I grew up in agriculture, and my family's in the John Deere business, so covering the agriculture market at Bobcat was super fun. So.
Oh, that's so great. All right, well, let's go have some fun, shall we?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here.
Really
enjoy the fair. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, it's great to
see you.
This is so great.
This episode is fueled by the American Petroleum Institute. No matter your politics, no matter the debate, one thing is certain. America runs on affordable, reliable energy. America's policies must recognize that Americans benefit from making, moving, and improving the energy right here in America. Today, America's oil and natural gas industry supports nearly 11 million jobs and provides American energy to keep this nation strong. Learn how at api.org.
I mean, look, I hope you tuned into YouTube to watch it. It's fantastic. The dude's fantastic. Everything about this thing was awesome. And I got to say, the nachos were really
They were actually good. That was not a bit.
So that's the craziest thing to me, and I kept having to tell this to people, is I would prefer rattlesnake nachos over any other kind.
It's all about
I had no idea.
It's the preparation, though, dude. That guy who was selling them,
Yeah.
you could tell he was put on this planet to sell that stuff.
He cared
you know
about
what I mean?
a good nacho.
You know,
not just sell it, but to make it.
Yeah, I mean, like the way it was diced up, sort of like a chorizo or something. They put jalapenos and stuff in there.
And he talked about, he was like,
it
gets
special
like,
gift.
Rattlesnake in chunks can be gamey. So first I put it into a sausage.
Yeah.
And then I chop it up into these crumbles. And that's why it's so good. I was like, man, this guy is an artist.
I don't know if
Craftsmanship.
divers, dine-ins, and diners and drives is able to go to food trucks
Triple
at the
D.
fair, but I mean,
But they ought to go
they
there.
should
He should.
go there.
Guy Fieri.
You know what? If they haven't, I've seen so much Triple D. I haven't seen any like fair episodes.
They should do
They
that.
must
need to do it.
exist, right?
They should do that.
Yeah.
And we should haul his ass on the show to explain it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
he's going to love it. He's going to say out of this world. Dynamite.
I love it. Well, listen, fellas, it's been a hell of a week. And next week,
Huge.
Big week.
Huge.
it's even bigger. We did it, fellas.
I think it was an absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much, Governor Burgum, for that delightful rattlesnake nachos. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.